of authentic points of view. Myself alone have at least 22. They come from the things that we have been through. Those things can either make or break you. Life is full of ups and downs. It's our choice to either smile or frown. Please choose to smile today, because it's one thing that's free to give away. People say that life isn't hard, it's what you make of it. But what if only struggle surrounds you? What can you take from it? Life can be hard and some things aren't fair. Please listen to others just to be aware. All I'm saying, you never know what someone's going through. Just because they look happy doesn't make it true. Hopefully this podcast will help you see you are not alone, you at least got me. We are more alike than you may know, but if we stay quiet, we will never grow. Don't ever give up, because you got this. If you quit, think of all the opportunities that you could miss. Hey everybody, and welcome to Authentic Points of View. I am your host, Danielle Boer, as always. Oh, woohoo! I'm excited about today's guest. She is awesome and brave. She's awesome. So, Jillian Abby, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm still trying to, as I'm sitting here and my armpits are sweating, I'm trying to wrap my head around you calling me brave, but thank you. Yes, today I'm going to be brave.
You are. I'm excited. Well, you'll find out why she's brave in a second. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh, absolutely. So, I jokingly call myself a Jill of all trades. I started out my professional career as a certified public accountant and was auditing a coal mine in Alabama. And then I became a licensed massage therapist. And then I became a craft beer bar owner with my husband at the time. And then through the joy that is therapy, at 38 years old, I was finally able to accept that I was a lesbian. And so I came out, and now my life, I'm an author. My memoir, Perfectly Queer, is coming out from Hay House Publishing. And I write full time that for companies, helping people tell their stories. So there is a quick flash of the last 20 plus years of my life.
First of all, amazing, because mine would have been 20 minutes. And then blah, 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 and then no. Oh my gosh. So here's why I say that you are brave, because how do you go on and just living? Okay, when I've interviewed other people, I'm going to try to figure out how to say it. They feel like they had masks on, or they weren't living their true selves. And it's really mentally exhausting, they said. So how did you survive that? What did you do to keep yourself going?
That is a fabulous question. And I'm going to chalk it up to not so much bravery, but the powerful force that is perfectionism and people pleasing. So had you asked me 20 years ago about my identity and how I identified, or did I feel like I was wearing a mask 20 years ago? I would have very boldly said, no, absolutely not. I know who I am. I love myself, and my life is perfect. It's interesting that I didn't realize the weight of the mask until I took it off. Wow. I didn't know it was there so much until as I mentioned, until I went through therapy and was finally able to say, you know what, I recognize this part of myself. I love this part of myself, and I accept this part of myself. And then with much more therapy over the years afterwards, I realized that I had slowly fallen into depression. And with depression and masking come other coping mechanisms, as unhealthy, maladaptive coping mechanisms. So for me, coming out wasn't just coming out as gay. It was a total life shift back to health and back to, physical health, mental health, um, and really starting to live my life for who I was and not who I thought I should be to everyone.
Wow. So you said a couple of deep things that have like a deeper meaning, and I mean it's really just pertains to everything. But yeah, so you didn't know until you took it off that that was really even a mask. So, and that's hard to hear as a person. It kind of made me
Yeah,
emotional a little bit because everybody can relate to that, I think, with lots of things. And
sure.
so it does make me like feel so happy for you now, but sad for you before. And I have lots of friends that have gone through the same thing and they've came out, but it's not just about that. Again, I was in domestic abuse relationships, and
Mm,
then when I lost my brother and I like was living in this two-person life of myself. Like I had to put on a facade, but I was really miserable.
yeah,
And I had to keep taking care of my kids. I had to do this, and
right.
then I went to school, and then I'm da 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 da. But on the
Yeah,
inside, I couldn't even hear certain noises, and I would freak out.
yeah.
And like so, yeah, it's really, I don't know. It's making
I
me. I'm a wimp. It's making me
Well,
emotional, but
no,
I'm
you're not a wimp, but especially, what you brought up as a mother too, I think, or
yeah,
anyone who's socialized as a mother or a parent, we we have to keep our shit together for the kids, or we try to as much as possible. And I
yeah,
think sometimes we can be so convincing in our story that we're fine, this is fine, um, that we don't realize how strong we're having to be. And that's the thing, just to clarify, like I knew my first memory of being attracted to another girl was in third grade.
wow,
Um, there are so many points writing the book, and I highly encourage anyone, whether you ever want to publish someday or not, it's fascinating to write your own story and to kind of connect the dots back to so many things
hmm,
in your life. And so looking back, there's so many times where I'm like, holy crap, Jillian, like, how did you not know? Because for so long, I knew what my attraction was, and I wouldn't admit that it was an actual attraction. It was just kind of like, isn't that interesting? I wonder why I
yeah,
want to be in her energy. um, while still trying to make myself be interested or date guys. And like I said, I got married. I was in that relationship. That was my first serious boyfriend. We were together for 20 years. He's awesome.
wow,
We were best buds. I mean, um, and that's the thing. I think that's what makes it so hard, and why I didn't so much realize the mask, because I did everything that the story tells us we're supposed to do to have that perfect life, that happy life. And in a lot of ways, my life was really happy. I loved the person I was with, loved our kids. It was fun and hard and weird parenting. Um, and yet it was like this hollowness inside, this emptiness inside of, is this it? Is this what it's supposed to feel like? Like, is this what life is supposed to feel like?
yeah.
And I couldn't, or I wouldn't admit that last piece of why things felt so off for me. But we all have things. It's not just a queerness thing. It's like there's sometimes where we have to be so strong that we convince ourselves that the things that aren't okay, or the things that are misaligned, aren't really misaligned. It's not really a problem.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. And that's why I brought up like domestic violence, because people say like,
Mm,
why'd you stay so long? What happened?
right.
Why would you deal with this? And blah 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 blah. And you don't realize how bad it is until you go away and you're like, holy crap, like whoa. Like and
Yeah.
I actually, somebody interviewed me for a radio show, and she read stuff out loud, and then I started crying, and she said, how do you feel hearing your story? And I was like, holy moly, like it's a lot. And
Yeah.
to like even when I go back, like I didn't talk about any of this. I mean, I always tell people my business, not business, but I talk a lot, right? So, whatever. But I don't tell people those deep down secrets of like things that happen. That's just not a normal conversation, right? So, yeah, like that's
I
not
know,
normal.
and yet that's my life now. Like, let's deep dive into.
I know, it's
Yeah,
weird. But
yeah.
yeah, once I started the podcast, I'm like, I'm putting my business out on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I want to help people. That's the only
Yeah,
reason why I'm just like spewing out everything. But yeah, so 20 years, holy moly, a long time.
yeah.
How did let's ask how he responded first. First of all, how did you even tell him? And then how did he react to it? And then we'll ask about the kids.
Yeah. Whew. Um, so it, I go into detail in this a lot in
Mhm.
my book. And I actually, when I was recording the book, it was the first time I've ever read the chapter without crying. I mean, I can feel it
Oh,
coming up right now because I think a lot of people, when you come out later in life, there's a lot of people who assume that you're bored in your relationship or you just want to change or this is just a fad or it's midlife crisis. That's what I heard a lot from people. And I don't know that they necessarily, it's really hard when we have to make a choice and we know it's going to hurt someone we love.
yeah.
And yet it's still the right choice to make. And so I came out in a craniosacral therapy session where I could finally say, okay, I am a lesbian and I can't mask this any longer. Um, the benefit I had is that I didn't have a person. So I just knew who I was. I was pretty confident in what my attraction was, but I didn't have anyone I was looking to date or have a relationship with. So I had the gift of time. And so I decided that I would take my time and when I felt ready, I would tell my husband at that time what was going on. What I didn't realize is that um, and my podcast co-host educated me on this. She's a brilliant Mormon woman with her PhD.
Awesome.
It's called the identity discovery gap. And so when there is a large discrepancy between who you know yourself to be and then the person that you're putting out there in the world, um, it can start to cause some real problems. And so in that period of time, I started having insomnia. I was living off of espresso and whiskey, espresso in the morning and whiskey at night,
Mm.
really in a dissociative fog mostly throughout the day. And so when it got to the day where I finally came out to my spouse, it's not necessarily because I wanted to, it's because physically my health was declining so much and
Wow.
mentally it was declining so much that I thought I was at the point where I was like, if I don't tell him, I don't know how much longer I'll be on this earth. So to complicate matters, we ran a small business together
Yeah.
that
The
was
beer
rated
business.
right. It was rated one of the best mom and pop shops in the area.
Oh,
Um, and we were closed for business. He and I were having a business meeting, and as soon as I walked in, I started shaking, and the tears were pouring out of my eyes. And that he was getting really concerned because I'm usually a pretty even keel person, and so he
yeah.
was like, "What's going on?" And so finally, I don't even know how I got enough air in my lungs to be able to say I'm gay. And at first he was a little shocked, and then and again I am so grateful, and I think this really speaks to his character. The next thing he said to me is, wow, that must have been really hard for you.
Oh.
Yeah, I he was like superhuman in that moment. But then reality hits too, and I still recall him crumpling to the floor in a ball.
Mm.
Um, and then I don't know if this was a blessing or a curse, but one of our customers saw my husband's car in the parking lot and he wanted to chat. And so walked right into the bar. And so I bolted out the back door and he just kind of pulled himself together to have the conversation. And then I had to hop in my minivan and drive home and return to my kids like nothing had ever happened. That was really hard.
Wow.
And we say that we talked more in our marriage after I came out, and those few months between when I came out and then when we finally separated more, we had more conversations, more honest, real deep conversations we had in our almost 20 years together. Which again was like, it was kind of bittersweet. But we talked about all of our options, that we could have stayed together, that we could separate down the road once the kids were in college. What did we want to do? And we both came to the conclusion that the thing that felt most right to us was that we begin the next stage of our lives now. Like, we didn't want to wait till we were 50 to try and start over. And we didn't want to be in a relationship where now we fundamentally knew what the underlying problem was that we had never put words to before. So he wasn't entirely surprised when I came out. I'll say that. Like,
really?
But yeah, so it was hard. I mean, I feel for so many people there are a lot more people who are coming out later in life now that we're having these conversations, or even just in marital situations where they realize it's like, this wasn't the right match. We can't continue this as is. And it's hard. It's hard to make those midlife major changes.
Wow. So I am divorced, and just that process is grueling. I mean, it's hard. And so the fact that you did it, and this is not me trying to be judgmental, because who the crap am I? But I feel like you did it the right way, instead of starting a relationship with a woman in your marriage, and then that would have been so traumatic for everyone. And so you did it a great way of saying, let me take time on this, let me think about it, let me process it, and then, for everybody's sake, but because you were having those health issues, you can't continue to live in something that's not the truth and just be so sick and not function. I mean, that's not fair to the kids or your ex-husband or you anyway either. So can you explain a little bit, and then we'll ask about the kids, what is a craniosacral therapy session? Just
I am
because.
so glad you asked.
Well, thank you. Tell us.
Yeah. So, well, because craniosacral therapy, or I'll shorten it to CST just for conversation, but it's a very gentle light touch therapy that only uses about 5 grams of pressure. So the weight of a nickel. So for me, I started as a licensed massage therapist and did deep tissue and neuromuscular work, and then quickly realized how much that hurts.
Yeah.
And what I loved about craniosacral therapy is that it wasn't fixing the problem or pain of the moment. It was working on the deeper issues, the kind of the root source. And so craniosacral work, it's done all over the body. The clients are fully clothed. They're usually face up on a massage therapy table. And the therapist works all over the body, kind of listening to the body of where there are certain restrictions, whether those are physical restrictions, energetic restrictions, whatever. Now, just to back up and remind you, I was a CPA, I was an accountant. So to wrap my brain around this shit was like, I was like, there's no way this works. I mean, it took me a solid decade of being introduced to CST practitioners and having them work on me over and over again until I finally went like, okay, I don't get this. I don't know how it works, but this really works. That this is getting to deeper things that we just kind of shove down in there. Like
Yeah.
we'll deal with that little emotional bomb later. And so through craniosacral therapy, and my children have had craniosacral therapy since in utero. My CST therapist, she worked on me while I was in labor with my son.
Wow.
It's a beautiful and amazing and powerful therapy. And it's nice because there are very few contraindications to it. But I love the fact that it can reach that emotional layer because, and I don't know if you see this as a nurse, but like sometimes it's not always the physical, like our life experiences, the environment that we're in, memories, emotions, all have an impact on our health. And I think too, masking speaks to that. Like
yeah, absolutely.
The health that comes along when you're masking or the health problems, it's more than just the physical body. So yeah, so craniosacral therapy is very interesting, magical work. If you go to upledger.com, you can find a therapist. They're worldwide, but it's really powerful work. At the same time, though, I will say, and again, this is in my book as well, I actually came out twice in craniosacral therapy, and the sessions were 6 years apart and with different therapists. And the first time, the wild thing is they were both working on the same part of my body too. But the first time I came out, I didn't realize that the therapist was going to, I didn't know I was going to come out in that therapy session. And I didn't realize that the therapist was going to share their own personal beliefs in after the session. So I came out in that session and I was feeling pretty good. And in that session, I came out as bisexual because I still wasn't ready to fully admit that I was queer. I wasn't ready to give up my marriage or change my life, but I wanted to admit my queerness. And so bi felt like the most appropriate description for me at that time. We finished the session and she said to me, "You made a commitment to a man and you need to honor that commitment." And this is where perfectionist mode comes in, that was like the switch was flipped and I went, okay, it's me that's the problem. I need to work harder at my marriage. And so I did for 6 more years.
Oh,
so in all therapies, you can have really good, powerful experiences, but I also don't want to paint CST or any other therapy like this is the magical thing that will cure you.
But here's the thing. I don't feel like that they had a right to say that, because now that I'm starting to get into coaching, I can have an opinion, but I can't tell you what to do. I can help you through things. Now mine's not physical. I don't touch anybody, but we go through a lot of things deep down, have to dig into stuff that's really hard to talk about. But if you don't bring it to the surface, you don't even know, like you said, you don't even know how much it's affecting you. And it does affect your health. It affects everything. And so, but yeah, I talk about stuff and I might say it would be helpful or I think you should write down your feeling or, stuff like that. But I would not say you need to leave your husband, but not in your instance. But I'm just saying, say a person's being abused, and because mine's on trauma. So if I say that, I could word it differently. It might be helpful if blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
You leave the power and decision-making to them.
Yes. It's not me. I'm not the one doing it. I'm not the one that lives that life or even knows the whole story, because there's like 50 sides to a story. Right. So you can't really, that's just my opinion. I'm not judging that person. Well, kind of, maybe I am. I'm not trying to, but what I'm just saying, like, I don't think that was the right way to go about it. And
Yeah.
then, but again, maybe they were just trying to be helpful. I don't know.
Right.
So let me ask you before we go on, and I want to talk a little bit about the kids, but what happened to the business? Like, what did you guys do? Did he just keep it all, or did you sell it, or?
So the business is still operating.
Oh.
As we were going through our divorce process, and I don't think I went into the details of that very much, but we worked with a lawyer friend who kind of mediated our divorce.
Oh.
Since we were on good terms and willing to talk through things, divorce is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even hard going the mediation route. I can't imagine for couples that have really contentious divorces. I can't imagine how hard that is. But even still, as we were going through, we realized that if we wanted, the kids were always top priority for us. Try and maintain consistency for them, make sure they're okay. We realized that it would be really hard for us to peacefully co-parent if we also had to run a business together.
Right.
And so, and honestly, our business was a bar. It was a craft beer bar. I'm actually not a beer drinker. I'm not supposed to drink beer. I don't do well with the gluten. So, and it was always craft beer was his dream and his passion. And so I said, you know what? Okay, you take the business and I will figure it out. And it's amazing how me just being more open to possibilities and understanding that I can't control the narrative. I can't control my story anymore and have it feel good. I just kind of opened myself up to, okay, well, what can I do next? I've kind of worked in all fields. Do I be a trapeze lady now? I don't know what to do. But I've always on the side have written for companies. So my words are on the labels of a national kombucha brand and all different. I got to write for the coolest clients and I didn't even have a business. I never advertised. It was just one client would talk to another and they're like, Jill just seems to get us. So try her out. She doesn't really do this for real. It's just like her fun writing hobby. And it grew. And it was like when I energetically let go of the bar business and said, okay, this is not me anymore, and that's okay. All of these writing clients started coming my way.
Wow.
I don't have any other way to explain it. It was like divine magic. It was beautiful. And so I a few months later said, okay, well, I guess I'll turn this into a business. And so I started, my business is called Storyteller Soul. Awesome. I'm not even sure why I named it that. I was like, this sounds very like woo hippy dippy for somebody who's going to be writing blogs and brochures, but whatever. It was Storyteller Soul. Yeah. And then it just grew from there. And now I am so excited that my primary job now is as a storyteller for executives. I work with 2 major multinational companies, and there are a lot of people out there who are fabulous leaders, but can't always put those words down on paper. And so I feel really grateful that I get to hear their stories and then translate it to the mission and vision of how they're trying to lead their organizations. Go figure. I don't know. I didn't even know that was a job. I'm like corporate storyteller.
That's so fun. Wow. How cool. See, this is what I say. So like a lot of times when we go through challenges or tough times or trauma or whatever, or grief or whatever you're going through, we release some creativity sometimes. Things that were, or we can do the opposite. We can push it down and bury it. Or like when COVID happened, so many people that didn't know they could do stuff started doing stuff, started making soap, started doing this, started a podcast, started a, and it's really cool because it's like, it was a tough time. Like, how am I going to make money? What am I going to do? Now I am stuck in a house. And so hard times really like let you kind of think of, well, what am I capable of? Oh, I like art. Let me do this, Right. And so just like if I never would have gotten divorced, so I moved from Ohio to Georgia, and that's been hard on my kids and everything. But but I never would have gotten any of the things I started last year, never would have, if I wouldn't have met the guy that I'm with now.
Mhm.
And my ex was like not supportive. Um, like it was just, I don't know. So I didn't have, I mean, I had two side businesses on the side, and I like worked as a nurse and was taking them to sports and was doing all this stuff. And it was just like robot mode, but I
Mhm.
wasn't really happy doing any of the stuff. And so, I mean, until I started like thinking about all the things that I've been through, that's when I was like, oh, I always wanted to do this. And he said, well, try it. And I'm like, well, okay.
What?
Yeah. Well, I'm scared of talking to people. Here's the funny thing. My fear was public speaking so bad that I failed speech class.
No.
Yep, I wouldn't go up. I just
Wow.
refused to go up. So that's the thing. Like sometimes the hard times in life force you to be brave.
Oh yeah.
They force you to learn a different way and to adapt. And you're like, oh, well, okay. And that's a lot to do with having kids. Like if I
Yeah.
didn't have kids, I don't know how I would have responded to things, because I
Mm.
wouldn't have had that. Maybe I wouldn't have had the motivation to keep going for them because I wouldn't have them. But yeah. So speaking of kids, now, how old were they when all this happened? And then how did they respond?
I believe, and sorry, I kind of have the memory of a goldfish here, but 6 and 9.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I prepared a little speech because I didn't want to. I knew this, like, I think of the movie Inside Out where they have the core
I
memories. And
love it.
I was like, I'm creating a fucking core memory here. I can't screw this up.
Oh,
So I wanted to make sure that I was thoughtful in what I was saying to them. And my husband at the time and I chatted about what we wanted to tell them and how much. Um, but we did make the decision that in telling them that we were getting a divorce, that we also had to tell them the reason why. And so I asked my kids, I said, do you know what a lesbian is? And my son, who was 6 at the time, he said, what's a Lego bin? And in my head, I'm like, well, baby, mama's going to Legoland and she ain't never coming back. But no, that's not what I
oh, that's
said.
so
That would
funny.
have been, yeah. What's a Lego bin?
Oh,
And so, yeah, so I explained to them that while I had love for their dad in the same way that we love our other family members, the way that we love our friends, it wasn't the same type of love that a person has for their spouse or for their romantic partner. And that kind of love I had was for other women. They were completely unfazed by that. That was like, okay, great, fine.
mhm.
Um, they were more concerned about the divorce and the details of the divorce. And
Right.
so we had a talk as a family and like, well, what matters to you? How can we make this process is going to be hard. What can we do to help make it better? And so there were things like they wanted to make sure they had the same stuffed animal at each house. Perfect. We'll make it
Oh,
happen. They wanted our first Christmas to still be our first divorced Christmas to still be spent together. They wanted to open presents all together in the morning, which we came out to them like, oh gosh, I think it was like January 3rd. So
oh boy, a whole year.
right. So we're like, yep, yeah, we will make that happen. Even though, for my ex-husband and I, we had no idea what the year ahead was going to hold for us.
Mhm.
But we did it. We had that first guy showed up at his door at 6:30 in the morning, and the kids opened presents with both of us there. And we did it. And then after that first year, they were okay saying, yeah, I'm okay having Christmas at dad's this year. I'm okay having Christmas with my mom this year. So anyways, I'm not saying it was easy for them. It was a lot of transition. It's change is always hard.
Mm-hmm.
We really, really, and again, I'm so grateful to my ex-husband for this, is that we still kept them at the as the goal. We were aligned in that, at least. If we disagreed on anything else, whatever, but their well-being is what we really tried to make all our decision making on. And again, too, like for neither of us having another partner at that time, it did make it easier. I don't judge people who come out because they meet someone else and they're like, oh wow, that's how they figure out their attraction. There are tons of TikTok lesbians out there who watch the videos and they're like, oh boy, I didn't even know this was a thing. It happens. I mean, that's how a lot of people come out, is they meet someone and they go, wow, that's the spark that I didn't know I could feel. But for my situation, it was different. And so time was really a gift for us. And also it was kind of a curse, because up until I did have a relationship, there was always the doubt in my mind of, what if you're wrong? What if you made a mistake? What if you just blew up your whole life over what came out in therapy, what you think is true, and maybe that's not your truth either. You start to doubt yourself a lot. And like, if you've been masking for a while, then it's like, well, how do I know who I really am?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, kids are doing great. We've actually had so many phenomenal discussions. My son is in 4th grade, and in his classroom, he came home one day and he's like, Mom, there's a kid in my class and he was calling kids gay, and it made a girl cry. And we're in Florida, so teachers don't discuss it much down here, don't feel like they have the space to discuss it. So he came home and he said, so is gay a good thing or a bad thing? Because it made the girl cry. And I said, well, honey, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's like saying that you're left-handed or you're right-handed. Like, it's not like,
yeah,
there's a good one and there's the bad one. It's just some people are gay, some people are straight. And he was like, oh, okay. And I said, so what did you say when he said you were gay? And he's like, well, and my son is on the spectrum and I love him for it. He has the best answers. He's like, well, I just said, well, I don't know if I am yet, but my mom sure is.
How cute. My mom sure is.
My mom sure is. And so I'm pretty sure that kind of shut down the conversation in the classroom. and I love it, because really, you know, for him, and it's just not a thing. It's like, okay. And my fiance, Jen, you know, we've been together for over 3 years now.
Aw.
Both of my kids love her, because she brings a whole new dimension to their lives and our family that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to see her love and her style brought into their lives, and how they just have that many more adults around them who love them and support them. And same with my ex-husband. He started dating again. I absolutely adore his girlfriend. And she is such a beautiful light in the life of my children as well.
Aw.
So we're lucky. I mean,
yeah, because it doesn't always go.
Does not always work out that way. I know I'm painting like the Disney princess image of like late in life gayness here, but yeah, it's possible though too. I mean, and that's the thing, is like, we hear so many queer stories of pain and hardship, and your Dirty Unicorns episode in your season 1, episode 4. I wrote it down because everyone needs to go back and listen to that one.
I love it. And I love them. They're great people.
Yeah. But that was a hard episode. There are tears. It was gut wrenching to hear their coming out stories and how they came out and how their families reacted. And while these painful stories are true of nearly every queer person I've ever met, including myself, we haven't talked about, you know, that side of my coming out, and what that did to my family and friendships. But at the same time too, I think it's really important to talk about the positives of I don't know if we hear enough happy queer stories too, of like, it gets so much better. And you can have these beautiful occurrences. Your kids can have a richer life experience, even though you had to go through something really hard and something that society still doesn't really know what to do with right now.
Yeah, so that just made me emotional because I was thinking about like flashing back to that episode. And I just want to say though this, if you heard that episode, and I know I have some listeners that listen to every single episode, so they have heard that episode, and they are fantastic. They are so happy. Their business is booming. They have the best energy in the
Yes.
world. They give the best hugs too. Amazing hugs. But and I'm excited because the farmers market is opening like soon. So I get to see them again because I would go in their shop some, but they're actually doing a lot of things now. So their business is not just like fragrances and candles and stuff now. They're doing makeup, and he like literally got put on a board and met. Oh, I need to check with him. I need to text him. But so uh Baz got put on a like a makeup guild board to like teach stuff, and he just finished the
Awesome.
I know. And so it's just so amazing to hear that. I would have never known if I just said hi at a farmer's market and never talked to them and learned their life but story. So that's the whole thing about like being kind and like treating people with respect, because you never ever ever know what they've gone through or what they're going through.
Yeah.
So to
And
hear, yeah, but to hear them say those things and to see how they are and how happy it is possible, just like you're saying, Jillian, it's possible to like eventually, even if you start off unfortunately and going through the horrible things or harassment or whatever, people are treating you bad or bullying or whatever that happens, which is so sad, and it should never happen that way. But it's possible to live a happy life and to find that one that's right for you.
yeah.
And so it's just a beautiful thing. Thank you for mentioning that, because to update people and let them know like they're doing kick butt awesome. And so, one of them changed their name because they just didn't feel like that was who they were, is the name that they were given. And that's awesome thing of freedom. And they talked about the mask too and all that stuff. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. But
no, they're great. I want a road trip up. I'm like, oh, it can't be that far away. I need to check this out.
no, we live a little north of Atlanta.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be there soon.
Yeah, come. Oh my gosh, it'll be so fun. I would love it. Okay. So they are a hoot. I mean a hoot. They are so fun. They have the coolest friends. Their whole like queer community.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Am I allowed to say queer? Okay.
You sure can.
I feel like I'm saying something wrong. But yeah, their friends are amazing. Like they hang out at their booth with them sometimes. I met a lot of them, and they're just so fun and so supportive, and like just have the best attitudes and everything. I just love their friends. They're fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, and you can get that energy through the episode. And I think that's why I think sometimes people want to, to your point, if you don't hear someone's story, it's very easy to paint a picture of what you think things are like. And when I decided to start writing my story, at first it started as kind of therapy for me because life seems stranger than fiction. But then I realized that there were so many misconceptions about the queer community, and even misconceptions that I had and internalized biases that I had against the LGBTQ community. And so I was like, I think we need to have this discussion. And I think people need to understand more of the coming out process, and that it's not, people are not making this as just oh, I'm bored in life, or, oh, I want to try this out. I mean, maybe somebody is, but I can't guarantee all results here, but there's so much more to everyone's story. And since sharing my own, as much as I do get some I do get negativity. I do get people's fear that gets projected on me. But I've gotten so much more love, and I have so many more people who have opened up and poured their hearts out because
Aw.
now they feel safe. I think when you create spaces like this podcast where people can share their stories, when we have memoirs that are deeply personal, it just creates this container of space where people realize that, like, oh, maybe it is okay to be myself. And I think what we're seeing too is the more people who open up, and like Baz and Stoney in that episode, like when people are living as they're created to be, there's a light that comes from that. Like when you are feeling good in who you are, there's a light that comes from that. It's easier to love if you can love yourself. So
Yeah.
I wish we could just get to the point where instead of being so wrapped up in the details and the choices of everyone, just why don't we all work together to make sure that everyone is just allowed to live the truest version of themselves? But I know that's hard to do. Like, this is very woo, let's create a meme about it. But in real life, it's like, okay,
Right.
how? But I
Yeah.
think conversations are where this all starts.
Absolutely. And just listening, like
Yes.
just listening to someone. And that's what I talked about on the episode that just aired, actually, with Lulu. He's so cool. I love him. He's in the UK, and so he was very funny. Like, I did not know he was going to be that funny, but anyways, he's like some high up corporate guy that teaches other people in his businesses cross cultural intelligence.
Mm.
And so but that's what we talked about, is communication and all these things. And he's like, and he said, well, you don't have to be in different countries to be able to, implement that, which is true, because he teaches like high up, I don't know, say like CEOs or really high up managers or whatever, to like enter globally or everywhere, like just to talk to different people, to be understanding and blah blah blah, whatever. And we talked about just listening. Like, that's the whole thing. And if you don't understand, clarify. If you don't agree with something, you don't always have to say it, right? In business, maybe in business, because it might not mesh, right? That makes sense. You don't want to do a bad partnership and your business go. But in relationships, you don't always have to say, hey, your dress is ugly. Guess what? Who cares? You ain't wearing that dress, right?
Right.
It's not your dress. Who cares? It's nice if you have a friend and you say, oh, I don't know. I'm weird. I don't think, even if somebody thought my dress is ugly, I don't really want to tell them. I don't know. People
Right.
do want you to tell them, but
there's beneficial honesty
yeah.
of like you have spinach in your teeth.
Yeah,
and then,
that's good. Toilet paper on your
right.
on your
But
shoe.
if I am feeling my outfit, which is
Yeah.
usually sweatpants and a t-shirt like I'm wearing right now,
Yeah.
let me be. Let me be.
All right. So, okay. Now, you talked about your memoir. You are literally like, I can tell that you host a podcast, because you're just setting me up for everything. Like, every time I'm about to ask something, you just bring it up. I'm like, this is smooth. I love it. So, and I'm honest. Everybody knows that I'm honest. So I'm just going to say that. Now, all right. How long did it take you to write Perfectly Queer? And then, like, how did you accidentally get published? Like, how did that happen?
Yes, I am an accidental author. It's like, so fun fact, today is actually the 2-year anniversary of when I made a YouTube video that I posted. It was my 40th birthday 2 years ago. And yeah, this is the second anniversary of my 40th birthday. And so I posted the video.
Is it your birthday today?
It is. Yeah. This is how I want to spend my birthday. I love this stuff. I'm so honored.
What? It's your birthday. I could have fake sang to you and made everybody throw up. No,
but we'll say that for the after show. But yeah, so I recorded this video and I said, I wrote a book and here's the first chapter and I'd love to know what you think. The reality is I had no book. I had like 3 chapters. It was my public coming out. And also it was kind of me testing the water of, am I really a writer? Can I do this? Am I allowed to tell my story? the support was overwhelming from people. I just got the most beautiful letters from the people I would least expect it from.
Wow.
And so that was kind of the fuel to my fire. And also, now I was accountable to them that, okay, I have to make a book. But I didn't, because I'm also, like I said, undiagnosed ADHD and an Aries. And so at first I'll dive headfirst into things and then I burn out really fast. And so I wrote a bunch of chapters, and I joined Hay House Publishing has a writers community.
Awesome.
That they open up once or twice a year. And so I signed up, I paid the $120 or whatever it was at the time. It's not a huge fee for the whole year. And with being a member, they have a contest that you can submit your book proposal to. And so in the summertime, that book proposal was due. And so I had started writing it and then I stopped, and I started writing it and stopped because I was like, this isn't perfect. I can't do it. I don't know. I am super lucky that I work with a very direct life coach who calls me out on my shit all the time. Gina Giraldi, she is my hero. She recognized that I'm a perfectionist. And so she said, Jill, how's your book proposal going? And I said, it's not. And she said, well, why not? Are you trying for an A? And I said, of course I am. And she said, do you have time to write an A proposal? And I said, no, this is due like in a few days. And she said, okay, well, if you don't submit anything, you get an F.
Right.
So I'm going to need you to aim for a B-. And she said, if you don't enter the contest, this will be the biggest mistake of your life. Truer words were never spoken. I entered that contest and I thought, you know what? This book proposal doesn't have a chance in hecking heck, because Hay House, they do a lot of self-help books, but there's not a lot of memoirs in their library. And although they have always supported queer creators, I didn't see any books in their library that were specifically LGBTQ subject matter. And again, it's a very challenging time for businesses to decide how vocal they want to be about their support of the LGBTQ. So I submitted it and I was like, there's no way this will ever happen. 2 months later, I'm in a meeting with my children's homeschooling tutor, and I see a missed call pop up on my phone, and I'm looking at the voice to text thing, and it says, read Tracy from Hay House, blah, blah, blah. He's the CEO. I assumed that it was an auto bot message calling me to say your credit card has expired and we need you to. I was so convinced that that was the case. So I sat through the rest of the meeting and then got the voicemail and called the number back, and Reed Tracy, the CEO of Hay House Publishing, answered the phone, and he said, you won. And I was like, won what? And he said, you won. Your book is going to be published. At the time, the title was a chronic case of hetero. It's like, a chronic case of hetero has won. I'm kind of like a fainting goat in that I don't recall what happened for the rest of the conversation. I'm pretty sure I screamed in his ear. I hope I didn't cause hearing loss. But yeah, he said that my book was the future of where Hay House wanted to go. Aww. And so all this time I was telling myself, they'll never publish it because this is not what they produce. Not even opening myself up to the fact that, why couldn't this be the future of what they produce? Mm-hmm. Like I was not creating the space for myself that they were creating. So I'm so grateful that I entered that contest. They've been an incredible publisher to work with. I'm totally an accidental author. I don't have a degree in writing or literature or anything. My grammar's horrible. I throw around commas like Oprah gives out cars.
Oh my gosh, me too. My sentences are like 12 sentences long.
Yeah. Every step I didn't at the time have any sort of platform or followers. And so I created all these reasons why I shouldn't be an author. And yet here I am still. So
yay.
With the message to everyone that if you have a book within you, I really do. And again, I can't say just submit to Hay House and you'll get published too. I'm really lucky that happened, but there are so many ways that we can get our stories out there. Self-publishing is huge now. And I mean, there are so many big name authors that started out in self-publishing. I think it's just really, there's something so satisfying and special about being able to birth a book into the world.
Yeah.
Like a baby, but it doesn't stretch out your parts.
Yes, please keep my parts not stretched. I already am stretched, but that's from different things. That's because I ate and I have a hiatal hernia. True story. So anyway, okay. Now, really quick, because I know that you gotta go scoot and boogie.
Yep.
Tell us what your podcast is called. That way we know about it really quick.
Wonderful. Okay, so my podcast is called Life and Love in the Q, and that's just letter Q,
so
not
cute.
the QUE. It's about the space in between. Like I said, my podcast co-host, she's a straight Mormon ally mother of 6 with her PhD
Wow.
in family identities, and she has a queer son. And so we have the coolest conversations. She puts science to my lived experience, and I think it's awesome. So that's
amazing.
the podcast. And then I also have my website is queerabby.com,
Okay.
which there's a blog on it. So if you're curious more about my backstory, or people have submitted questions to me, where we can have a really honest conversation about topics that are hard to talk about.
Yeah. And then do you have any like social media or anything that you can?
Yes. So I am a TikTok lesbian. There's
never heard of that before until today.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're gonna end up
until your birthday. No,
yes.
I know.
Hey. So if you go to @AskQueerAbby, that's my TikTok handle. And then on Instagram, I am Jillian Abby author. Why did I not make everything the same? I don't know. I just like to keep it interesting. So
you're spicy. You're like,
I'm so spicy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I had like 6 Instagram handles at one point. I'm like, okay, pick one and go with it. So Jillian Abby author, Queer Abby, Ask Queer Abby. I don't know. Just Google me. You'll find me.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been so awesome. Thank you for sharing your story and letting people know that, don't be scared to be your true self. And everybody goes through a different journey. It might turn out way better than you thought. And unfortunately, it, might be the other way, but hopefully it goes well and you surround yourself around people that love you and that will accept you, and then come out slowly. You don't have to just like tell everybody
Cannonball!
Yeah. And then, that's got to be overwhelming. So, whatever you do that's right for you, just know that living your true happy self is what it's all about, not being in that mask. You deserve to live freely and openly and happy. So how awesome are you, Joe? I thank you so much for spending your birthday with us. What? I didn't know that.
This is totally my pleasure. This is like, if I could come up with a way to spend my birthday, this is it.
Aww,
so I get to hang out with you and all these people. This is great.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. And have I'll ask you later what you did for your birthday, but have a great rest of the day. Sounds and good. Have a great 42nd birthday.
Woo. Thanks, Danielle.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh. I had no clue it was her birthday. How cool is Joe? I love that story. And it really gives people hope that things can turn out good. And it's going to be rough, of course. It's not like everything was rainbows and unicorns. When you have been with somebody for 20 years and all of a sudden you're telling them that news and your kids have to go through that. But it's just a beautiful thing that everything kind of just transitioned into each other and that they didn't have to fight over the business and everything like that. So I'm so glad that she came and shared with us on her birthday. What in the world? How awesome. So thank you all for listening. I love you guys. You are kick butt awesome. And I just really appreciate everybody coming and listening to me jibber jabber every week. It's great. And like I said, I'm going to keep saying it. The my new podcast will be out either the end of May or June. So I will definitely announce it and let you know how to listen to that as well. And then new things will come for this one as well. So I'm really excited. Again, thank you for being great. Thanks for being interested in all these awesome people that I'm speaking with. And thank you for not being judgmental. And thanks for never giving up, right? So that's what I talk about. Don't ever give up because you got this. If you quit, think of all the opportunities that you could miss, right? So keep on going. And I'm just glad she is living in her truth right now and not having to wear the mask. And that comes with lots of stuff, mental health stuff, different relationships, jobs. I mean, all kinds of things. So try something new. Try something you've always wanted to do. Try to live your dreams out. Go for those things that you don't think is possible. I mean, some things are really like possible, but you just don't know how to do them. Research, look it up, write things down, take your time, make a plan. You can do it. I believe in you. Have a great day and see you and talk to you next Wednesday. Bye, guys. Happy birthday, Jill.
Thanks for listening to Authentic Points of View podcast. I hope that something you heard today changes your point of view. If you would like to share your views, please email me at authenticpointsofview@gmail.com or leave a comment on Facebook at Authentic Points of View podcast. Remember, always be mindful of other people's journeys and have open ears and an open heart.